Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. So this is the last Google Hangout for tonight. I hope y'all can still rock with me. Um, so I was on YouTube and I saw Ayanna's video. I'll post a link to it in the description box when I get a chance. Since this is on my phone, it's gonna have to wait until later, probably tomorrow, so you all can watch her video so that you can have a full context. So she posted this video in response to Derrick Jaxn. Derrick Jaxn posted a video on Instagram and on Facebook that is critical of her. And basically, what he did is he took a clip from one of her videos where she's talking about relationships, and then he provided his own commentary. And this is the clip. Basically, it was a clip of Aayanna basically talking about a scenario. She basically said, well, imagine that you're in a relationship with a man. You know, she's talking to women, basically saying, imagine you're in a relationship with a man and you find out that this man is cheating on you with another woman. But other than him cheating on you with this woman, everything seems to be fine. Like he's, great. Like he's a great lover or something like that. He's a great man in every other respect. But the only problem is that he cheated on you with another woman and stuff like that. And she went on to say, like, basically, she was saying, like, is that does that make him a bad person? Like that doesn't make him a bad person. He can still be a good man despite the fact that he cheated on you. He could still be a good person and everything. So basically, why are you tripping? And why, to sum it up, basically, why are you tripping over that particular issue? And basically, Derrick Jaxn was going in, basically saying, well, that is a big issue. Like if a man is a cheater and a liar, then that tells you that he's not a good man, and basically saying that a woman shouldn't be insecure and tolerate that kind of stuff. When I get a chance, I'll post a link to his commentary as well so that you can watch it. But that's it in a nutshell. I mean, he said more than that, but that captures the basic context of what he was saying. So in response, you know, um, Ayana basically said, "Well, I wasn't saying that you know people should be fine with a man cheating." She said that that wasn't her point. She was making a larger point about polygamy and this issue of, whether or not the fact that a man has a desire to be with more than one woman, whether or not that makes that man a bad man or whatever, or not a good man and stuff. And she was basically saying that once you get over the fact that he's with another woman, you can still realize that he is a good man. And then she made other points. She talked about how um, basically a man can be able to satisfy a woman, multiple women at one time. So if a man is capable of satisfying a woman, all these women at once, then why should it be a problem? Like if a man is satisfying you with every other way, but he just happens to have a desire to be with these other women, why should that be something that prevents you from being in a relationship with him, basically? Why should, you write him off in that situation? And then she also talked about some other issues with respect to this. She talked about how, a polygamous situation will address some of the problems that exist in the black community, like the fact that you have a disparity between the number of men and the number of women in the black community. There are far more black women than there are black men. And to address that disparity, she was saying that perhaps polygamy may be a healthy alternative for the black community. Given the fact that you have large incarceration rates in the black community, a lot of black men are locked up, unfortunately. Unfortunately, a lot of black men die at a young age. And unfortunately, there are more educated black women than black men. So, with all those factors taken into account, to deal with this issue of the disparity between the numbers of black men and black women, she suggested that perhaps polygamy may be a means to address that particular issue. And she was going on to say that, such a situation will enable black children to have a black father in the household. She also talked about how it will enable many black women to be with a black man instead of, having to go outside of the black community to find love and all that kind of stuff. She talked about how it could be beneficial to have that situation in terms of men, but she also, like in her analysis, she basically said that with respect to women having multiple men, she was basically pointing out how that would not benefit the community in the same degree that a situation involving a man with multiple women would. And she also made a point about how like some women had this idea that that they should be enough for a man, and she went on to say, well, a man may see one feature or one, certain aspects of one woman that he likes, but in another woman he sees all these other aspects that he likes that that are pleasing to him. So he could be in love with multiple women at one time. And she also made the argument that this is the man's nature. Man has a natural nature to be with multiple people and all that kind of stuff. And so she used all these arguments in support of polygamy. And she cited some example where she said that she was in a relationship at one point with this guy, and she found out that he was cheating with this other woman. And so, but instead of getting mad at this other woman or fighting with this other woman, she became friends with this other woman, and they had an understanding that they would share this man. And she said that they actually slept in the same bed. She said that they weren't like having threesomes or anything like that, but she said that they slept in the same bed or whatever, and they were all cool with each other, um, and they had an understanding and everything like that, which is like, to me, it's like mind blowing. You have a modern day woman that will deal with that kind of situation. So before I go on, I'm going to look at your comments real quick. I know it's super late. Hopefully, some people will tune in later. Tune in later to this after it uploads. So big game Orenthal James said Derrick Jaxn is a Samo simp. So somebody said, who is the female name Aayanna? She's a YouTuber. She goes by the name of Goddess Aayanna. Again, I'll post a link to her video in the description box when I get a chance to. I'm just calling Aayanna because I don't like referring to a person, you know, a woman or a man as a god. So that's the reason why I'm calling her that. Just by her name instead of giving her that title. And I know it's real popular here on YouTube and in social media to call black women God and all that kind of stuff. The black woman is God. You got people selling shirts saying I met God and she was a black woman, all that kind of stuff. I don't buy into that kind of stuff. I don't use that kind of rhetoric. I don't believe in that kind of stuff. So I'm not gonna, call any woman God or any man God. And I did a video a while ago explaining my position on that black woman is God thing. And people can look it up. If I get a chance, I'll post a link to that video in the description box as well. But I just wanted to lay out my position on polygamy. I did a video about this a while ago, but this whole dialogue that they had just prompted me to just reiterate some of the points that I've made in the past about polygamy and my thoughts on it. The first thing I'll say is this: like, polygamy is inherently unfair and unequal. Like, because you have a situation where a man is able to have multiple women, but the woman is not able to have multiple men. You have a situation where a man um, has, is able to have all these women, and these women are in a situation where they have to share this particular man. That's not what equality looks like. That's not what a partner looks like. And really, I think that any woman that's willing to tolerate that kind of situation in a modern society, I'm not talking about like in other countries outside of the US, I'm talking about here in the US. Like any woman that's willing to tolerate that situation is a woman that's insecure as far as I'm concerned. Like, because a secure and confident woman wouldn't have the, feel so desperate to the point where she has to feel like she has to sell, share a man with other women. I think that that's an act of desperation, because there are plenty of men out here that are willing to be in committed monogamous relationships with women. So I think that it's the insecure woman that will be more inclined to share a man with another woman. I think that that's like just a sign that somebody lacks confidence. They lack a certain self-respect. And I'm not talking about like in those other countries. I'm talking about here. Like, I'm not talking about in countries where that's the norm. I'm talking about a woman in this Western society taking on that kind of mentality. I think that again, it's an indication of insecurity. But you see this a lot. Like, even though we're talking about polygamy, you have a lot of women who share men. You know, um, who don't mind being a side chick and stuff like that. But I think again, at the end of the day, that deals with self-esteem. Their self-respect and all that kind of stuff. And another thing with that, like, I don't think that many men are really in that kind of financial position to be able to provide for multiple women. As I was talking to someone today, someone real important to me today about this issue, and they were pointing out how like a lot of these people that advocate all this kind of stuff are not nowhere near in a position to provide for these women. A lot of these people are like these dusty, hotep type cats. They don't have the financial means to be taking care of multiple women and raising multiple kids, so they're not in a position financially to take on that responsibility, emotionally to take on that responsibility. I mean, it's like a lot of brothers don't even know how to interact with women. Some of the brothers don't. They just don't. Like, they weren't raised to be. They didn't have a male role model. I was watching this video about his brother, Hassan Campbell. He was talking about how his father didn't teach him how to treat a woman and stuff like that. He didn't have a role model, and unfortunately, that's true for a lot of too many black men in our community. So coming from that background, and she even acknowledges this point to some degree. Coming from that kind of background, it's going to be hard for somebody to manage a healthy, productive, monogamous type of relationship, much less, a relationship with multiple women and multiple children with all these responsibilities, both financial, emotional, etc. So I don't view that as like some kind of real solution, given the fact that there's a very limited amount of men that would be in a position financially to take on that kind of responsibility. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is, like, when you just think about it, like in terms of equity, like all you have to do to give yourself some context is to just think. Like, I mean, I know a lot of brothers like the idea of being able to have sex with multiple women just from a biological standpoint. That sounds good. Um, but the fact of the matter is, when you think about it, like in terms of equity, would you be okay with your woman having another man? Would you be okay with sharing your woman with other men? I mean, of course you wouldn't. So why would you even think that a woman would be really okay with that? Like, aside from these like women that have been broken down emotionally to such a degree that they have such a low self-esteem that they feel like they have to share a man. So that's one thing. And then another point that I wanted to raise is this, and that's about like this whole idea that it's man's nature to be with multiple women. to procreate with as many women as possible. I think that that's man's lower nature. Like if you're uncivilized, if you don't have knowledge, and you're operating on an animal type of level, then yeah, I mean your desire, you're letting your sexual desires rule you. So yeah, you are operating like an animal, just like like dogs in the street. They don't have to have any responsibility. They just hump on as many female dogs as they can to spread their seed and stuff like that. Um, or like a lion in the jungle or stuff like that. That's what animals do. But we are human beings. We are above the animals. And when you have knowledge of self and civilization, you realize you don't have to live like an animal, by having all these multiple women and this and that. And the thing is, like, this idea of polygamy is being presented as some kind of solution or some kind of means to deal with a problem when we already have virtual polygamy in our communities, and it's in fact undermining our communities. When you look at these, like, I mean, you have people that have like multiple relationships at one time, um, with multiple women, multiple children and all that kind of stuff, and it's not making our community stronger or anything. And I know that that's different from actual polygamy where the man is in the household and this and that, but it's not a solution, man, especially when it's only a few people that are actually in a position to take on all that responsibility. um, and another thing that has to be pointed out, like she was saying all this stuff about like how somebody can be a good man even though they decided to cheat and lie and getting into in a relationship with another woman. By definition, that's not a good man, as Derrick Jaxn pointed out. You can't be a good man if you're a liar. If you're lying to a woman, you're deceiving a woman, and you're cheating behind her back. That's not the definition of a good man by any stretch of the imagination. So yeah, so that's a good. I think that that's a valid point that Derrick Jaxn raised in his tape. Very valid point. And yeah, so let me see what y'all are saying before I close out. I don't want to keep y'all too long. Yeah, I know I'm up late. It's late. I think it's after 12 now. Yeah, it's late. But I wanted to get these videos out. I was working most of the day and chilling with some colleagues after my work. And I got in a little bit later than I wanted to, but I wanted to discuss these things and get them out because otherwise I'll never post the videos. So somebody said biology isn't always fair, and I don't understand like what your point is about that. What point are you making about that? How does that strengthen the argument for um, polygamy? If you can leave a comment in the chat to let me know. So somebody by the name of Delusions of Grandeur. I don't know if you're trolling or what, but you said um, I got 5 baby mamas and we all loving on each other without fighting. I don't believe that. I can't see that happening. I mean, I guess I don't know if you mean like loving you in a relationship with all them at the same time. Like I don't see that happening, man. I don't see like those women like being happy and loving in that kind of situation. Yeah, so somebody little one said, I believe polygamy is incorrect, but I also believe that an insecure woman could not endure a polygamous relationship peacefully. I mean, I don't think most women in Western society could, endure such a thing. I mean, I don't think anybody like that has some sense of self could endure such a thing. Like as a man, Like, there's no way in hell I would share my woman with some other guy. Um, that don't even make sense to me. So why would I expect, a woman to share me with other women? You know what I'm saying? That don't even make sense. But it's some women out there that's willing to do that. But I just think that I don't think that that's the best arrangement. Yeah, I mean, women, like somebody said, it's called the male sex drive. It exists for a reason. Yeah, I mean, we have a natural sex drive so that we can procreate and keep the human species alive, man. That's why we have a sex drive. And men aren't the only ones that have a strong sex drive. Women have strong sex drives. Women are attracted to other men, multiple men and all that kind of stuff as well. So sex drive is not the only, the men aren't the only ones that have a sex drive. And I don't think a sex drive alone means that you should be having, multiple wives and all that kind of stuff, especially wives that you can't take care of and provide for. I just think that, monogamy is a higher level of development in terms of consciousness. Um, it's a better type of arrangement because you can, I mean, it's better to have a one-on-one relationship, a relationship built on equality and partnership instead of a relationship built on dominance and dominated, because that's what you have in a polygamous situation. The man is in a superior position in that situation. And often in those societies where you have polygamy, you also have the oppression of women, and that's something that people don't want to deal with. Like in societies, for instance, in parts of Africa, you have female circumcision. You have certain societies where women aren't allowed to get an education. These kinds of societies exist in the Arab world, in the African world, and other parts of the world where they have polygamy. And then like you have situations involving children, child brides and stuff like that in these situations. Very oppressive situations, very exploitive type of situations. That's not an egalitarian society. And that kind of mode is really outdated. That's for a bygone era. And when you look at the problems of like STDs and stuff like that in society, those types of arrangements only perpetuate that problem, especially when you're dealing outside of the confines of marriage. Like, a lot of people, many of the people that are in these polygamous situations are not even married. They're just in relationships with multiple women and all that kind of stuff. That just spreads like all kinds of diseases and stuff like that. So that's something to think about as well. And it's just like interesting, like how a lot of these guys like they basically use this hotep rhetoric to basically get over on these women, and a lot of them are so gullible that they buy this stuff. They buy into this stuff, and they're actually willing to share themselves with guys in these types of arrangements. For me personally, I would rather deal in a monogamous relationship where I really get to know the woman that I'm with instead of like cutting up my time among all these other women and not really getting to know them on a deeper level instead of like just some superficial level. And that's what happens when you got like all these multiple women and all that kind of stuff. And I know from like a biological standpoint, just from some physical standpoint, it may be appealing to the body, to the flesh. But when you deal on a higher level, a higher frequency, that's not necessarily the best arrangement, man. You have jealousy amongst, sometimes you have jealousy and rivalry among the women and stuff like that. That doesn't create a happy family life and all that kind of stuff. Um, so yeah, I just had to share my thoughts on here for a second. Let me see what y'all are saying. Let me continue looking at your comments. So Lonnie One Love said, I'm not down with polygamy at all. So this person keeps saying biology isn't always fair. What do you mean by that? Like, explain yourself. You said that before, but I'm not hearing an explanation. So Esmeralda said the issue isn't sex drive or a biology issue. It's affording multiple wives and children. Black folks can barely afford one child. Exactly. I mean, multiple wives and children. I mean, that is a huge financial challenge to take care of all those women. And I think that in a lot of these situations, as I was telling someone earlier today, I mean, in a lot of situations like this, these people that are living in this quote unquote polygamous situation are living in a situation where there's some exploitation, where you have a guy that is basically using these other women's salaries to provide. It's like those women are the ones providing, financial stability to the situation. Without their incomes, the man wouldn't even be able to be in a household. So a man is not even in a position to provide, but yet he's having all these children with all these multiple women. And I just think that that is irresponsible. So someone said, who is Aayanna, this goddess Aayanna? That's the name she uses, but I'm not calling any woman God on here, or any person God. So that's why I'm not using her full title. I'll post a link to her video when I get a chance to in the description box. So y'all look out for that. Yeah, that is her, Water Sniper. She's the one lighter skinned woman with the freckles. Yeah, like the first time I heard of her, like, I mean, even though she talks about a wide range of things, the first time I heard about her is when she did a video that went viral talking about polygamy. And, so she's done videos before endorsing polygamy. And it's based on some relationship she had with some guy who was cheating with this other woman or whatever. And they decided to be one big happy um, couple where it's like two women and this one guy and stuff like that. So based on that, she's like been advocating for polygamy and stuff. Esmeralda said the way these guys cry about paying child support, polygamy is a pipe dream, especially for all the cuts coming up. Yeah, I mean, it is a pipe dream for a lot of guys. I mean, it is a complete pipe dream because, I mean, many of us can't even afford to, like, can't even afford to maintain child support payments barely. So how you gonna be providing for a whole tribe of kids and a whole team of wives? I mean, it doesn't add up. And then Lottie once said this. She said, "It's all about the men. What about the woman? It only benefits men. It's not fair at all." Yeah, exactly. It doesn't. The only way I could see it benefiting a woman is if this guy is like super rich, like if he's like one of these Saudi princes or whatever, with billions of dollars and stuff like that. Then, it's financially beneficial, but it's still detrimental in other ways. And she said, "Let's keep it real. Half of these men can't even please a woman sexually." That's funny, man. And yet they want to have all these multiple women. So this person said biology hasn't caught up with our modern day society. Our sex drives aren't compatible with monogamy. Sadly, we live in a modern age, but females still want the biggest, strongest men out there. Um, yeah, I mean, people have strong sex drives, but just because you have a strong sex drive doesn't mean you can't, um, you know, release that strong sex drive with one woman. You don't have to be with a gazillion women. And then it's like at some point you got to have control over your sexual urges. I mean, are you not like, are you an animal or are you a man? A man can exercise control over his lower self and decide, well, I'm not going to sleep with a gazillion women. I'm going to, be rational and limit, the number of women I'm with and be selective in my choices and all that kind of stuff. So, Mark Black said the only issue I see with polygamy is the fact that women don't get the protection of marriage. So allow men to marry more than one woman. Problem solved. So a lot of so he's basically saying that there are a lot of women that don't get married and stuff like that. And if you have polygamy, then that means more women are able to get married, etc. And I don't, first of all, um, again, as I was saying before, like even though there are disparities, I mean, there are plenty of men that are willing to marry just, one woman. They don't need to have multiple women and stuff like that. They're willing to be in a monogamous relationship. And I don't think a woman should have to share her, share a man and stuff like that. And I know that there are dire situations, like in the past, there have been wars where you had a whole bunch of men killed and stuff like that. And women had to, they needed a man to procreate and all that kind of stuff. So in that kind of dire type of situation, I can understand the situation, but our situation is not that dire at this point. I think that there are, women can be with a man that's committed to monogamy, man. I think that too often what happens is you have these men, unfortunately, that have like a player mentality, but they try to rationalize their conduct and stuff like that by talking about this polygamy stuff and using that as an excuse to be with multiple women. And I just think that it's inherently unfair, like for a man to have all these multiple women, and the woman have to share her man with all these women. Because I mean, if you just think about it again, would you be willing to share your wife with some other dude? Some other dude is laying the pipe and all that kind of stuff in your wife. Would you be okay with that? If not, why? How in the hell can you expect your woman to be okay with you having multiple women? And again, there are some insecure women that are okay with that, unfortunately. All right, so let's see. And I know, like some people will say in the past, like they'll bring up religion and all that kind of stuff. Well, I mean, a lot of that stuff happened like over 1,000 years ago. We're in modern days and times, and I think that we need to deal with things in our, as my imam said, in our current time, space, and reality. So that's the way I see it. So Lonnie, One Love said I seen HBO Big Love. It was funny as hell. I seen a couple of episodes of that. Yeah, it's just like for me. So somebody's big game said polygamy works for some people. Don't hate on their hustle. Yeah, I mean, I'm primarily talking about me and like my position on it. Like, people are going to do what they're going to do. Um, I mean, I just think about my own daughters. Like, would I want my daughter to be in that situation? Obviously not. Like, I wouldn't want my daughter to be in some unequal type of arrangement where this guy is with multiple women. And with that, again, comes with the other issues that I talked about with respect to women. Let me see what else. Just bear with me a second. Yeah, that's a good point about that's a good point about women being willing to be a side chick and stuff like that. Um, because that is virtually like a form of polygamy. Um, but yet these same women, as Big Game pointed out, wouldn't want to be a sister wife because I mean the thing is like whether they want to be one or not, they're virtually like a sister wife. Like if you're a side chick and stuff like that, and I think that it says something about someone's character if they're willing to put up with that kind of arrangement. Shout out to Black Culture. Peace to you. You said you popping up all over the place with these videos. Yeah, I'm traveling and stuff, so I'm like in different places. And I'm just doing these videos as ideas come to me. So, I may do a lot of videos every now and then because I may have a drought later. Shout out to Solo TV 84. He said women are meant to be seen and not heard. Wow, man, I don't agree with that at all. 50 Shades had it right. Watch it, my brother. Now, I haven't seen 50 Shades yet. I'm going to check that out. I mean, it's not my type of thing, man, to be honest. I'm not big on that kind of stuff. The only way I end up watching something like that is if somebody makes me, like if it's on, not makes me, but I'm in a situation where um, it just happens to be on and somebody's watching it or somebody wants me to watch it or whatever, then I'll check it out. But I may go through the trouble to watch it just because you're mentioning it. But I definitely don't agree that women need to be heard, not seen. Women should be heard. Their voices are just as important as our voices. So why shouldn't they be heard? Like, I think part of the problem in relationship is we don't want to hear what the sisters are saying. We're not listening to what the sisters are saying, and because of that, our relationships suffer. Um, let's continue on. So, Big Game said you're looking at it from a simping point of view. I thought you were in the Nation of Islam. I'm not in the Nation of Islam. I am a Muslim, but I'm not in the Nation of Islam. And I know that Islam doesn't forbid polygamy, but I think a lot of times people have the false perception that Islam encourages polygamy when it doesn't. There are verses in the Quran that just make it clear that you should try to have justice with your wives. Like if somebody has, multiple wives, they should treat them justly and fairly and provide for them. And there's lots of responsibilities and requirements for somebody that's in that kind of a relationship. And I just think that most men can't even meet those requirements. And in fact, the Quran talks about how no matter how much somebody tries, they're not going to be just to all of their wives. They're not going to treat them all the same. So that tells me right there that it's better to be in a monogamous situation. And it actually, if I recall correctly, it does talk about how it's better for somebody to be with one wife in that type of situation. And most Muslim men are married to just one woman, despite like these popular perceptions of Islam and stuff like that. And I don't think it's simping to call for equality between men and women. That's just intelligent. It's not simping to call for respect of women. That's called being respectful. I mean, we should be about respecting our women. We should be about protecting our women. And if we are like oppressing them, by putting them a a situation where they're forced to share you with these other women and stuff like that, that's not right. That's not just. I mean, again, as I said before, would you share a woman with another man or with multiple men? Of course not. So how in the hell are you expecting a woman to do the same thing? I'm not gonna read read Solo TV's comment. Some of these, if you all want to read it, y'all gotta watch it on the playback and look at the live chat. But I'm not gonna read that out loud, despite my disagreements with that woman. I mean, big game. Would you want? Do you have any sisters? Do you have any daughters? Would you want them to be in that type of arrangement? I don't know. I mean, I see somebody said women have sex drives, but they're not as strong as men's sex drive, and they outnumber us. And nature, that's nature giving us a hint. I mean, the only reason why they outnumber us is because of artificial factors like the mass incarceration issue, the early deaths of young black men, and all that kind of stuff. And I just think that that's the real reason why you had a disparities in terms of sex drive. Like I know many women that have like strong sex drives, like really strong sex drives. In fact, some women like their sex drives are stronger than their man's sex drive. Like a man, will get tired of having, like will get tired sometimes with having sex and stuff. But the woman is still, um, her drive is still on 100 and stuff. So I don't buy the idea that men have a stronger sex drive than women. I just think that in society it's more acceptable for a man to have multiple women than it is for a woman. There comes shame if a woman has like multiple partners compared to a man having a lot of partners. A man is celebrated for having a lot of partners, whereas a woman is denigrated for having a lot of partners. Okay. So somebody said, Big Game said your wife may be watching, so be careful. I'm not married, but I hear your point. I hear what you're saying. I just keep it real. I always just talk frankly. I'm not. I just speak from the heart on here, man. All right, so let's see what other people are saying before I close out. All right, so with that, I'm gonna say peace and blessings. I want to thank y'all for hanging in here with me tonight. I know I did quite a few Google Hangouts, but I had to get this off my chest, and I want to hear what y'all have to say. Please rate, comment, and subscribe. Get those thumbs up. Thumb up the video, support the video. So with that, I'm gonna say peace to each and every one of you.